Hello, Nancy here again, now to talk about the style elements of IEW. I'd also like to cover a little bit about why I think they are important. So the three kinds of style elements would be dress-ups, sentence openers, and decorations. So dress-ups just add some interest, some style, and imagery to your students' writing. These should definitely be taught even to young kids, and even a small child just learning how to write can understand that if I have a sentence of Sally walked, it's going to be very different if I say something like Sally stumbled, Sally ran. Well, ran's kind of not super strong verb, but Sally sprinted. Okay, those are very different images in your mind. So don't be afraid to introduce dress-ups even with young emerging writers. Second would be the sentence openers. These are important because they really help engage your reader again. If you read a paragraph where every sentence starts with the subject and then the verb, it just gets dull and boring, and your mind kind of shuts off a little bit. By writing some longer sentences, some shorter sentences, by starting them differently, it helps engage the mind of your reader a little more. And then decorations are a way for your students to kind of add some of their own flair and interest, of course in moderation. We don't want to overdo the decorations for sure. Okay, so you really want to plan out how you're going to introduce style elements throughout the year. Without a plan, it's really easy for assignment after assignment to slide by and nothing new being taught or practiced. So ask yourself a couple questions. One would be, what is your goal for the year in terms of teaching style? So that whole idea of start with the end in mind. By the end of the upcoming school year, what are the style elements I really want my students to have at least had a chance to practice? Okay, remember, this is not about perfection, but opportunities for them to practice these things. Okay, and then break it up and into chunks and put right in your lesson plans at the start of the year. Okay, by week 6, I hope that we've covered these dress-ups or whatever, that kind of a thing. So that as your year goes on, you can remember, oh yeah, I wanted to add that in by now and I still haven't. Maybe I can do that on the next assignment, okay? Pay attention to your students' interests and the ones that they're interested in learning next. It can be really helpful to have the posters up in your classroom, and the school has purchased several sets of posters, so you should be able to find a set of posters you can use or make a request for some. But about every other writing assignment, you can probably introduce a new style element, unless they're really stuck on the last one and struggling, then give them a little bit more time. If you have some students who are nervous about a new one, a really easy way is to just make it extra credit for an assignment or two. And the students who are ready for it are going to be happy to put it on there, and those who are struggling with it can take a little more time. I really encourage you to follow the Robin Hood principle, and by that I mean steal from the rich and give to the poor. I would do this with brainstorming sessions. So on stylistic elements, if I know that I have at least one student in the classroom who's still really struggling with one, if everybody else, even if everybody else has it, it's really easy to help them by just putting things on the board. I would require my students to put brainstorming ideas onto their keyword outlines. So we've created the keyword outline, everybody's done with that. Then I would say, hey, we're going to do some brainstorming. We added the number 4 sentence opener recently, and I want everybody to write down at least 2 number 4 sentence opener ideas. Who's got one we could start with on the board? And I would write maybe 3 or 4 on the board, and then I would walk around and just make sure everybody has a couple written down. That means the kids who can do it on their own, they're going to have this done really quickly, and they're going to be moving on and already, doing other things, and that's fine. But for those who really need the help, it's very helpful for them to have ideas on their keyword outline. And I tell them, you are welcome to write this word for word in your story or your paragraph that you're writing. I never penalized them for not having come up with it on their own. Because here's the thing, if they're able to do it on their own, they will. They're going to use the brainstorming ideas when they're just stuck and they're not really getting it yet. But it's that whole modeling, that practicing, putting it in correctly and having it right. When they go back and they're revising, they're having those good examples in their work, and they're going to get to the point where they can do it on their own. And then also, as you're reading paragraphs and you're seeing the students who are consistently having to use those brainstorming, then that's also a really great assessment tool for you to know, hey, when we have time in class and they're working on rough drafts, that's a student I want to work with a little bit one-on-one. Okay. Be effusive during these brainstorming sessions. I'm always would be amazed at the shyer students and those struggling students who would be willing to share their ideas. They just needed that. By hearing the encouragement of other students sharing ideas, it was a great way to get them to kind of branch out and try some of those stylistic techniques that were a little bit hard for them at first. So don't be afraid to continue to introduce these stylistic techniques. They are great. And remember, it's okay if it sounds kind of awkward as they are practicing them and trying them out. The goal is that by the time that they leave in 12th grade and head off to college, that they're really comfortable using all of them, and then they can just choose on their own when they want to use them, that they can make their own writing a little more interesting and clearer in the sense of more specific to the message that they're trying to send in their writing. So anyway, I hope that you have fun teaching all of the stylistic techniques in IEW.